Another creepy DM, this time with a foot fetish, and a DM that makes a really bad call and then doubles down. Hi friends and fiends, my name's Saya from Tabletop Mayhem, and if you enjoy this type of content, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on other Reddit RPG horror stories, like tonight's 2 stories focused on 2 DMs that make some pretty bad calls. Let's jump into our first story. DM asked if I sold feet pics out of nowhere. Last year, I played for the first time with some friends I knew from college. We went looking for someone to DM since neither of us had experience and found a guy online. A lot of these stories start out like this. The campaign had, apart from the DM, 5 players, me, 3 of my friends, and the boyfriend of one of these friends. Everything started well. It was online since the DM was from another city and the 5 of us lived very distant places. In one of the first sessions, the DM started saying that my voice and my appearance reminded him of an influencer, which no one found strange since another friend of mine had already said the same thing, but looking back now, it was already something a little strange since a few sessions later, he said that she was very attractive. Time passed, everyone found something a bit weird during the campaign, like his insistence on getting romantic interests for each player in the middle of the story, but no one mentioning anything. We arrived in December last year. None of us talked to him outside the RPG, and I never sent him a single message that was about anything else. We had the last session of the year on a Tuesday, or on Wednesday, he started messaging each of the players to resolve some character issues for the next campaign. Nothing strange there. DM talked to me about my character and kept insisting on finding a romantic partner for my character while I said I didn't want to. The conversation was normal other than that, until at one point he asked me if he could ask something and asked me not to tell the other players. The message was sent, "Do you sell feet pics or something?" I felt extremely uncomfortable. I panicked, passed trauma hair, and said no, and the conversation ended there. Nobody else said anything about the campaign since it was Christmas and New Year's Eve, and in January I was still desperate, and I had finally told the other players about it. We talked about it and decided obviously not to continue with the DM. We left the group chat just saying that we didn't want to play with him anymore, and he just responded with, "Did I do something wrong?" Since then, I haven't played anymore, and it really pisses me off that the first long campaign I played in ended like this because a guy that doesn't understand basic decency. It's worth mentioning here that he followed me on Instagram and Twitter, where I never gave any indication that I was doing an OF or anything like that. I'm going to start this off with a rant. If you watched any of my prior videos, you probably know what I'm going to rant about. I'm going to go quickly. It is inappropriate and uncomfortable to force your players to have significant others for their characters if it wasn't written into their backstories. At least very early on in the campaign. It's uncomfortable, it's unnatural, you're creating a false relationship. It's weird. Like, I don't know. If it happens naturally, great. Like if you're traveling with an NPC who's rescuing you, who's on the road with you having funny banter, you know, who's doing things like, you know, saving your life. Yeah, you would naturally maybe fall for that character. Your character would at least, you know, develop some feelings for them. Regardless if it's romantic, it's definitely going to be friendship. And let me tell you, friendship can be a very powerful motivation as well. But it's weird. I don't know why DMs are forcing this on their players. I can only think of 2 reasons. And one is having access to being able to emotionally manipulate their players through their husbands, their wives, their partners, you know, and I think that if that is what you're doing, if that's the reason why you're doing this, that's a really weak move, and you got to work on that. I'm telling you right now, like that's cliche, and it's honestly just weak motivation. You know, you got to work on that as a DM. 2 would be using these significant others to play out really creepy scenarios, really creepy, romantic, you know, pushing the boundaries of the fade to black. And don't do that. Stop doing that. It's really, really creepy. Nobody likes it. And I guarantee you in those scenarios, it's not the player approaching NPCs for that. It's the NPCs, which proves my point. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, I'm all for romanticizing, playing out. That doesn't bother me as a DM at all. I mean, it doesn't even bother me if you're a little snooty. Like if you're going to play a barbarian that's really into busty barmaids, go for it. As long as you've set boundaries of what's appropriate, where your line of faded black is with your DM, everybody's on the same page, go for it. It's your campaign. The problem is when you're pushing those boundaries as a DM, like, that's not appropriate, and it makes you a big fat creep. Addressing what the DM actually said to this player, do you sell feet pics or something? It's the something that gets to me. Look, it's pretty clear that he's shooting his shot in a really ewy and disgusting way, and I'm positive it wasn't her feet he wanted to see with no socks on, if you get my drift. But I think that it is wild to ask somebody if they sell pictures of themselves. I mean, you're basically saying you want to see somebody in the noodle, and how is that ever appropriate? Like, that's such a weird thing to do. Look, guys, if you, and ladies, and theys and thems, it doesn't matter. If you are attracted to somebody, if you're interested in somebody, ask them out on a freaking date, dude. Ask them out on a date. Stop doing stuff like this. This is such a weird thing, and this never goes well. This never goes well for people doing this. So stop that. I mean, I think the moral of this video is we gotta vet people better. With us playing online now, which is wonderful. I love to see the community growing the way that it is. But with us being able to just pop online, find a group of people to play with, we still have to remember that these are strangers and they're not your friends. They could become your friends, but they're not your friends. And we need to just vet better. DMs vet players all of the time to make sure that they're going to be good fits for their campaigns. And players, vet your DMs. Just vet. Moral of the story, vet. The player did handle this in every right way. She, immediately was like, I'm not going to play with this guy anymore. She told her friends, and, great on her friends to support her and leave the campaign. It is unfortunate that, it was a long campaign, but don't stick around for that. I mean, like, what a weird thing to ask somebody. I mean, yeah. I can't help but think that when he asked her not to tell anybody, and then he asked her the question, that he has actually asked everybody he's ever played with that question, and he has like a creepy book of like his players' feet that he just keeps in a box somewhere, and he's like, new campaign, new feet. That's weird. Our second story, punished for role-playing a cautionary tale. Okay, more like a rant. In our current campaign, I'm playing a Loxodon Drunken Master Monk, which is a super weird build, but a lot of fun. One of our other players is a half-elf, super straight-laced paladin, and our characters have built a bit of a rivalry because of their moral differences. An example, my character calls the paladin, "Sir, stick up his ass." Recent scene, we're in a tavern celebrating our saving the city again. The booze is flowing, and my character keeps swapping his ale tankard with the paladin via sleight of hand. Sleight of trunk? So my player character is always full, and the paladin can't figure out why he's drinking so much and not feeling anything. PC is not the brightest, and the player is solid at role-playing. No big deal. Fun, lighthearted RP moment, right? The DM asked me to make a con save because of all the beverages. I fail, and he hits me with three levels of exhaustion. Why? Which wouldn't have been a big deal, but this was also the opening scene of the next act, and we were immediately ambushed by a bunch of undead and demon baddies. So now we're in a deadly battle with one of the party's key hitters who is way down in effectiveness. We survived, but honestly, it was not fun for me, and not being able to do anything. I chatted with the DM after, and he took the actions have consequences approach to explain their decision. In my opinion, slapping around the barmaid to get free drinks warrants an FAFO response. Playing a character that is thematically a large being, plus having drunken literally in a subclass title, I think a few pints isn't going to put him under the table. We agreed to disagree and move on. The crappy part is that now I'm reluctant to roleplay too deep for fear of getting arbitrarily punished again. On another hand, I'm borderline, it's what my character would do. On the other hand, I'm bummed that a bit of between character fun turned into a crappy experience. I'm really bummed out for this player because I really don't think this player did anything wrong at all. I mean, as a person who really enjoys role playing, as a player and as a DM, I think that this was just, I think it was so wrong of the DM to punish the player like this. And I really think it discourages, like he says, discourages players from wanting to role play, which is so sad to see. I mean, and it's also over something so silly and something that's so common and something that's actually, I mean, appropriate for D&D. I mean, being in a tavern drinking is so, it's almost cliche. I mean, like, that's what you're supposed to do in between fights, and that's exactly what was happening here. They saved the town, and then they had a big undead baddie fight afterwards. I mean, this was so appropriate, and I mean, like, it just feels weird, and I can't find a justification as to why the DM reacted like this. It gets to the point where you have to ask yourself, are you punishing the character's choice with actions have consequences, or are you punishing the player? I'll tell you right now that this punishment was so wrong on so many levels. First of it, just being inaccurate. Drinking alcohol would never do this. And in D&D, drinking alcohol is considered a poison, and you treat it thusly. Like this is so, rules as written was inappropriate. Two, there are so many better ways. If you're punishing the player's character's choice, not the player, there's so many better ways of punishing a character. You have them be drunk, and then you have them make horrible mistakes that you get to later on, atone for. I mean, this is the perfect opportunity where this player could have, got a little too frisky with someone they shouldn't have, or if he was sleight of handing drinks, maybe sleight of hand something else from someone he should not have. I mean, those are wonderful little nuggets where you can pull from later in the game that help out everybody, help out the campaign, help out with plot hooks, help out with character growth. By just giving a player 3 levels of exhaustion really shows a lack of imagination and a lack of strength on the DM's part. I mean, it's just such a bad call. And this player handled it exactly right. This player talked to the DM afterwards calmly, and having the DM just being, actions have cancer because I said so mentality of it just shows that this DM does not like to be challenged, cannot justify the decision in an adult manner, and shows a weakness and a lack of responsibility. I'm sorry, but like the only other thing I can think of is maybe in this DM's world, that's how alcohol acts upon people, because I'm saying like you do have an alcohol beverage that was milked from the tits of gods, and like it's gonna mess you up. But the thing is like, I feel if that was the case in this campaign, then this player who has probably drank a lot of alcohol throughout their campaigns would probably know that's how alcohol works in the campaign. So I can't really see that being a justification, because I don't think, have they drank at other taverns and had this happen to them? It's just to me, it just seems like the DM was having an off night, probably wasn't digging the role playing, and wanted to punish the player for it, and ultimately punished all of the players for it. I mean, truthfully, you're going to have some combat experiences where you're not going to be effective. You're probably not going to have a good time because you're penalty boxed. But I mean, that just happens sometimes. As someone who plays a lot of spellcasters, that happens to me a lot. So the thing is that you're going to have a DM cannot cater everything to every single player. They're going to do the best they can. But in this circumstance, I don't think that was the case. I definitely think this was a peeved DM taking it out on their player. And I'm really sorry that this happened to you. I love the dynamic between you and Sir Stick Up His Ass. I think that's really fun. And actually, as a DM, I love to have players like that. And what's really funny is like, that's what you want from your players. You want them to have these moments where they're able to bond and have fun with each other. So again, I don't really know what the DM thought he was going to get out of this. I think he just really ruined other opportunities for his party to want to relax and have fun and have these moments that really are silly and endearing. So again, I'm really sorry. Well, there you have it. are two stories with two different DMs on the opposite side of the spectrum of things we still should not be doing as DMs. Those are pretty bad calls. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? 3 levels of exhaustion is ridiculous. And would you sell your feet pics to your DM? I mean, in this economy, I mean, I might. For a magic item, I might do it. I'm kidding. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.